The transformation of Saint Moses in the rugged deserts of Ethiopia long ago. There was a man whose name struck fear into the hearts of all who heard it. Moses the Black, a towering figure of immense strength, was the leader of a notorious band of robbers. His reputation was built on violence, ruthlessness, and terror. Fearless and brutal, he plundered villages, attacked travelers, and took what he wanted without mercy. To those who encountered him, Moses was a nightmare, a symbol of lawlessness and destruction. Born in Ethiopia, Moses grew up in a harsh world. Little is known of his early life, but it is said that he was of great physical stature, which earned him both respect and fear from an early age. From a young age, he was drawn to a life of crime. He became a skilled and feared warrior, and soon found himself leading a gang of thieves. The desert was his domain, where he and his men ruled with an iron fist. His name was known across the land, and it was always spoken with a mix of awe and dread. Despite his power and wealth, something within Moses gnawed at him. He had everything a man could want: riches, strength, and respect. Yet his heart was empty. The more he stole, the more he killed, the more he felt an inner void. The endless cycle of violence offered him no peace, and no matter how many victories he claimed, his soul remained restless. One day, after a failed raid, Moses found himself fleeing from the law. Exhausted, wounded, and alone, he wandered into a remote desert monastery. Seeking shelter, he entered a world completely foreign to him, one of humility, prayer, and peace. It was here, among the monks, that Moses would encounter something he had never known before: grace. The peaceful lives of the monks struck him with a profound realization. The life he had lived was leading him to destruction, and there was another path, one of redemption and salvation. From this moment, Moses began the painful journey of transformation. A life once defined by violence and fear would be replaced with one of repentance, humility, and faith. This is the story of how Moses the Black, once a feared outlaw, became one of the most revered saints in the Christian tradition, a living testament to the power of God's grace to redeem even the most lost souls. Early life of Moses. The Black Moses was born in Ethiopia during the 4th century, a time when the desert was as unforgiving as the lives many people lived. From an early age, Moses was known for his immense physical strength and towering stature, which set him apart from others. His sheer size and power earned him both fear and respect, but it also marked the beginning of a turbulent life. Very little is recorded about his childhood, but the harsh realities of his surroundings shaped him into a hardened individual. It is believed that Moses worked as a servant during his youth, but his aggressive nature and insubordination led to his dismissal. Cast out and with no one to guide him, he turned to a life of crime, where his strength and cunning became his greatest assets. Moses quickly rose to infamy as a bandit. Leading a gang of thieves, he roamed the deserts, attacking caravans, raiding villages, and leaving destruction in his wake. His name spread far and wide, whispered in fear by those who hoped to avoid his wrath. Travelers who crossed paths with Moses and his men often met with violence, and few dared to challenge him. Yet beneath his violent exterior, Moses was a man restless in spirit. Despite his dominance and material gains, he carried an inner void that no amount of plunder could fill. His life of crime, though powerful and free from law, left him isolated and consumed by turmoil. Still, he buried these feelings deep, masking them with the only thing he knew: more violence, more theft, more fear. Moses' early life was defined by his strength and lawlessness, but it was also setting the stage for an incredible transformation. For in the midst of his darkness, the seeds of redemption were quietly waiting to take root. The turning point in the life of Moses. The Black, it was during one of his raids that Moses' life took an unexpected turn. The details of this fateful moment vary, but all accounts agree that it was a moment of desperation that brought him face to face with something far greater than himself. One version tells of a failed robbery attempt, where Moses targeted a wealthy man's home but was discovered before he could complete his theft. Pursued by authorities, Moses fled into the harsh wilderness alone and with nowhere to hide. Exhausted from days of running, he stumbled upon a remote monastery nestled in the desert. It was a place of silence and prayer, a stark contrast to the chaos and violence of Moses' life. Desperate for food and shelter, Moses approached the monks, expecting fear or rejection. Instead, he was met with kindness. The monks, who lived lives of simplicity and devotion, offered him refuge without question. The peaceful demeanor of the monks struck something deep within Moses, their lack of fear and their willingness to help him. A man whose name was synonymous with terror left him unsettled. He had spent his entire life taking from others, relying on his strength to dominate and destroy. But here, among these humble men of faith, he encountered something he could not understand: grace. As the days passed, Moses remained at the monastery, observing the lives of the monks. He saw in them a peace he had never known. The silence of the desert, once unbearable to him, began to speak to his heart. He found himself reflecting on his past, the lives he had ruined, the blood he had spilled, and the emptiness that followed him despite all his power. One night, overwhelmed by guilt and sorrow, Moses approached the leader of the monastery and confessed his sins. He poured out everything: the thefts, the murders, the destruction, and asked if someone like him could ever be forgiven. The abbot, moved by Moses' sincerity, told him of God's boundless mercy and the power of repentance. It was at that moment that Moses made a decision that would change his life forever. He chose to renounce his past and dedicate himself to a new path, a path of humility, penance, and faith. He remained at the monastery, taking on the simple life of a monk. He fasted, prayed, and sought forgiveness for the countless wrongs he had committed. The man who had once been feared across the land was now learning to become a servant of God. It was not an easy journey. Moses faced many struggles as he battled his old habits and desires. Yet through perseverance and the support of the monks, he slowly transformed into a man of profound humility and unwavering faith. This turning point marked the beginning of a new chapter in Moses' life. From a feared outlaw to a devout monk, Moses' story became a testament to the power of grace and the possibility of redemption for even the most hardened souls. Moses the Black embraced the simple and disciplined life of a monk. The man who had once wielded power and wealth found himself living in poverty. Rising before dawn to pray, his strength was now dedicated to manual work, helping to maintain the community that had taken him in. Moses struggled deeply with his past. The memories of his crimes and the weight of his guilt often overwhelmed him. The abbot and the other monks encouraged him to trust in God's mercy. They reminded him that forgiveness was not only possible, but freely given to those who truly repented. Moses threw himself into his new life with relentless determination. The remnants of his old self lingered. Temptation and anger still plagued him. He doubted whether he could truly change. The abbot assigned Moses strict tasks of penance. He would spend hours in prayer and fasting. Moses became known for his extraordinary humility, once a man of pride and violence, putting their needs before his own. The same strength that had once been a tool of destruction was now used to build and protect his community. One of the most remarkable changes in Moses was his approach to forgiveness. Refusing to hold grudges or retaliate when wronged, Moses confronted them calmly, the thieves, eventually repented and joined the monastic life themselves. Moses also gained a reputation for his deep wisdom and spiritual insight. Many sought him out for guidance. Despite this, he always pointed to God as the source of his transformation. Moses grew in holiness and became a model of repentance and faith. His life as a monk stood in stark contrast to his violent past, inspiring others to believe in the power of redemption, no matter how dark their past had been. Moses the Black, once a feared outlaw, his journey was not easy, and perseverance, and even the most broken lives could be made whole. Martyrdom of Moses the Black. As Moses the Black grew in faith and wisdom, his transformation from a ruthless bandit to a devout monk became widely known. But his life would take a final turn that cemented his legacy as a saint and martyr. Moses was ordained a priest and became a spiritual leader in the monastery. He was entrusted with guiding others, proving that redemption could lead to greatness in the eyes of God. Word of his location and transformation reached some of his old enemies, who still harbored anger toward him and viewed his newfound faith as a betrayal of the life they once shared. Moses received a warning. A group of armed raiders was approaching the monastery. Fearing for their lives, began to panic, but Moses remained calm. Moses spoke the words that would echo through history. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. Violence has no place here. Trust in God's will. Moses stood before them unarmed. He made no attempt to fight or flee. He welcomed the men with words of forgiveness, alongside 6 other monks who refused to abandon him. Moses' martyrdom was not the end of his story. In his death, courage, proving that even the darkest of pasts could be redeemed through faith and love. Saint Moses the Black is remembered not only for his incredible transformation, but also for his unwavering commitment to God. His martyrdom is a testament to the power of grace and the strength of a soul truly devoted to the path of righteousness. Legacy and conclusion of Saint Moses the Black. The story of Saint Moses the Black did not end with his martyrdom. Rather, it marked the beginning of a legacy that would inspire countless generations. From a feared outlaw to a beloved saint, His life became a profound testament to the power of repentance and the transformative grace of God. Moses' example showed that no one is beyond redemption. His journey from violence and sin to humility and holiness served as a beacon of hope for those struggling to overcome their own pasts. He became a symbol of how faith, perseverance, and a willingness to change could reshape even the most broken of lives. His teachings, both through his words and his actions, left a lasting impact. His famous declaration, "Those who live by the sword will die by the sword," became a timeless reminder of the futility of violence and the importance of placing trust in God's will. These words echoed far beyond his monastery, influencing not just monks but anyone seeking a path of peace and forgiveness. In the centuries following his death, Moses the Black was venerated as a saint by both the Eastern and Western Christian traditions. His story became an integral part of the Church's teachings on repentance and transformation. Churches and monasteries were dedicated to his memory, and he remains a patron saint for those seeking to leave behind lives of sin and violence. Even today, Moses' life inspires people around the world. His story is a reminder that the journey to holiness is not about perfection, but about perseverance. It is about turning away from darkness and striving to live a life of love, humility, and service. As we reflect on the life of Saint Moses the Black, we are reminded that the road to redemption is never easy. It requires courage, humility, and faith. But through his example, we see that it is a road worth taking, a road that can lead to peace, purpose, and eternal joy. Saint Moses the Black's legacy is not merely a story of transformation, but a living testimony to the boundless mercy of God. From sinner to saint, his life continues to shine as a light for all who seek forgiveness and a new beginning.